grow up to be a normal man.
Good kid.
10 years ago, August 2nd, 1978, the lives of Love Canal residents would never be the same. When Health Commissioner Robert Whalen advised pregnant women and children under 2 to be evacuated immediately, panic hit.
Why let my 3-year-old stay? She has a birth defect now.
It was a new crisis, one society knew little about and even less on how to handle it. The administrator for the U.S. Disaster Aid Administration arrives from Washington and sees chemicals bubbling to the surface. New York State makes history, deciding to evacuate everyone, all 239 families who live next to the old Hooker chemical dump site. The story of Love Canal began nearly a century earlier, when entrepreneur William Love had a dream of building a canal connecting the upper and lower Niagara River for cheap hydroelectric power. The project was abandoned. The canal was used by Hooker Chemical in the 40s and 50s to dump 22 tons of industrial waste. In the mid-70s, heavy rainfall, melting snow, and rusting drums brought the buried chemicals to the surface and into backyards and basements. After the first evacuations, Love Canal Homeowners President Lois Gibbs led the residents left behind in a 2-year battle with government, even at one point holding 2 Washington officials hostage to call attention to their cause.
What they have seen here today is just a Sesame Street picnic.
President Carter decided to allow 700 more families to move. CBS television told the story of the Love Canal struggle in a 2-hour docudrama, starring actress Marsha Mason as Lois Gibbs. Today, a group of former Love Canal...
And we know that dollars come before people.
We're historic, whether we want to be or not. We're historic, you know, just like the Falls.
Luella Kenny's little boy died from a rare kidney disease she believes is linked to chemical contamination.
I have to look back with so much sadness and you know, just a very difficult day for me to remember.
Marie, she's still looking for answers, Mrs. Kenny, and I suppose everyone is still looking for answers.
Yeah, 2 major families. Homeowners President Lois Gibbs was given the news from Washington over the phone. She, in turn, repeated the message to the more than 100 residents who gathered.
President Carter today declared an emergency to permit the federal government and the state of New York to undertake the temporary relocation of approximately 700 families in the Love Canal area of Niagara Falls.
Gibbs viewed the news as a victory because she believes a disaster declaration is coming, which would open up federal funding for the purchase of the homes. But many of the residents today were unhappy because it was temporary, not permanent relocation.
They're talking about 1 year. Why aren't they talking about until they buy our homes and let us get on with a normal life? We're back to being refugees and gypsies.
I don't like it at all because I think he could do better than this.
I feel good, but not that good. I do not like being moved out and maybe say, and then come back in. Once I leave my home, I want to go out, I want to stay. You know I don't want back in my home, you know me.
I don't know how the kids are going to take.
Financial impact of Love Canal on Niagara Falls.
The cries of Love Canal residents were heard around the country and perhaps around the world this week, with all 3 commercial networks covering this latest and most disturbing news. But how disturbing is the news to tourists and conventioneers who are lured to the falls because of its natural wonders?
My name is Butler from London, England.
Are you familiar with the Love Canal problem?
No.
Did this affect your decision to come to Niagara Falls?
No, I never even thought of it when I came to Niagara Falls. After all, we're on our honeymoon. We've been married 41 years and figured it was time to come to Niagara Falls.
One man who is very concerned is Richard McLeod, who handles national and international publicity for Niagara Falls. He's been through this once before, when Love Canal first became a national issue about 2 years ago.
Well, we'll overcome it the same way, I guess, that we did when this first broke, this Love Canal story, over a year ago. And we will let the trade journals know, and the decision makers, the executive directors of associations and so on, that it is safe to come to Niagara Falls, that it isn't anything, nothing is happening to the visitors, it's the people that live in the immediate area.
While it is still too early to tell how tourist and convention dollars will be affected, the city estimates it will lose close to $170,000 in tax revenue if close to 700 Love Canal families abandon their properties. Love Canal residents Ray and Pat Sandinato grew up together in Niagara Falls. Pat has damaged chromosomes and no intention of staying in her hometown.
I just want to get my kids away from here, away from the factories, out in the fresh air, where maybe they can have a decent life. I don't know. My son's probably already permanently damaged.
Perhaps someday the Sandinato house, along with the rest of the Love Canal, will be added to the list of tourist attractions in Niagara Falls. But for now, those who handle tourism for the city are not eager to put the problem in the public spotlight. Rich Newberg, News 4, Niagara Falls.
The problems created by the Love Canal have no age barrier. Larry Hunter reports on the children of the Love Canal area.
This is the 93rd Street School in Niagara Falls. But inside this building, you won't find any students and you won't find any teachers. You see, they had to be transferred to other schools further away from the Love Canal. Their homes, their schools, even some of their friends have been taken away from the children of the Love Canal area. Some children accept it, others just don't understand. And the parents, they worry.
I'm kind of scared for their, I guess you'd call it, mental point of this. Because now last year when they were moved from Stella Niagara back to motels, back to the house, they got pretty disturbed about it and were drawing pictures. And the pictures were like graveyards with fences around it, symbolizing the canal here. And they had our little house.
Most of the kids in the neighborhood, or right where I live, are in their early teens. And most of them, as most teenagers are, they're kind of up in the air with it. They come down here and root and holler a little bit on both sides. But I think they'd go along with what their parents say. They want out too.
This is the Cleveland Avenue School in Niagara Falls, where students who used to live in the Love Canal area now attend classes, more than 6 miles away from their original homes.
I'm scared right there. I'm gonna feel funny when I grow up and have bad dreams about the Love Canal when I was little.
What do you think about when people say Love Canal?
Chemicals.
Does it scare you?
A little bit.
What are you afraid of?
Dying.
Larry Hunter, News 4, Niagara Falls.
News 4 will carry a half-hour special outlining the Love Canal chemical tragedy tomorrow evening at 7:30. And once again, John, that's temporary, not permanent.
And that's the problem, and people are working on that too, Marie. Today's relocation order for the Love Canal family spawned legislation from a New York Congresswoman. President Carter's action, as Marie pointed out, only provides rent-free housing for up to a year. That's the maximum provided under current federal law. But Congresswoman Elizabeth Holtzman today introduced a bill that would allow the feds to relocate the victims, buy up the contaminated homes, and...
I'm like a toy, and I want to know if I can go home and live.
And we're continuing to follow breaking news in the town of Tonawanda. News 4's Anthony Kanji is live for you at a major grass.
Well, at first they have eye irritation. Their eyes begin to water. They have a raspy throat, and they begin to get congested or just have some kind of respiratory distress.
All the way back to the office.
What do you think causes it?
Well, I believe it's directly connected with the construction on site that they've been doing the last 2 weeks. The air in the area has been very humid, the air is very stagnant, and I believe it's staying right here. And when the children return home, they are breathing in whatever's in the air contaminants.
What are the solutions, do you think?
I think there's only one solution, is to remove the children from this area immediately, and not just from 8 to 5, all day and all evening. The air isn't moving, it's here, the kids are breathing it, and the long-range effects are very frightening.
The people of Buffalo had campaigned vigorously to have the Pope include the city of Buffalo on his itinerary. When he didn't, they were disappointed.